Hello, this is cjhoyle, and welcome to the 5th episode in my Eastern Ontario bike tour series. Today is day number 5 of my 9-day trip, and I'll be riding from just outside the community of Rockland to Fitzroy Provincial Park. My route today will begin in the westward direction, and I'll make my way down towards the edge of the Ottawa River. The city of Ottawa has a trail which follows along beside the river, and I'll be staying on it all the way through the city. After making a quick stop for lunch in Kanata, I'll turn and start heading northwest. From there I'll eventually reach Fitzroy Provincial Park, which is just outside of Fitzroy Harbour. So today is Wednesday, September 4th, 2019, and I woke up at the Recreationland Camground just after 7 a.m. Not surprisingly, my breakfast this morning is an energizing bowl of campsite overnight oats. Last night there was quite a bad thunderstorm, and I was curious to talk to my neighbor Robert to hear how well his homemade bicycle camper made it through the storm. After packing up all my gear, I had my bike loaded by 8:30 a.m. and was ready to begin my journey. I started the day off with a climb back up the same steep hill that I rode down at the end of yesterday's ride. Based on the weather forecast last night, I've been expecting to wake up to a rainy morning, but I haven't felt a single raindrop, and the roads are already drying out. The roads I first started on this morning were very quiet, but as I'm getting closer to the Ottawa suburbs they're getting more busy, but at least there's a nice paved shoulder on this one. The past 4 days of my trip were extremely calm, with virtually no wind, but today I can feel a very strong wind from the west, which I'm fighting against with every pedal stroke. When I reached the edge of the suburb of Orleans, I joined this paved pathway which led me north towards the river. Along the northern edge of Orleans, there's a nice trail which follows along beside the river, although the water seems to be mostly hidden behind all the trees. I did eventually get to see the river though, in this spot where a local kayaker is getting ready for a morning paddle. This waterfront route has a short segment which runs through a residential neighborhood, but I was soon back riding on a paved trail once again. I've now ridden beyond Orleans, and the path takes me through a bit of a forest towards the next suburb which is called Gloucester. I'm now riding over a water body which is called Greene's Creek. The time is now 10 a.m. and I've ridden 25 kilometers so far. Throughout Gloucester there's a beautiful trail which runs right alongside the river. The trail is unpaved crushed gravel, but the scenery really couldn't get much better than this. I eventually got off that trail and switched to this paved trail which goes past the airfield for the Canadian Aviation and Space Museum. That museum is one of the stops that this double-decker tourist bus will make on its route around Ottawa. Funny how today it's double-decker buses that are catching my attention, when yesterday it was cows. The trail I was riding on has led me to this paved sidewalk on the Sir George H.N. Cartier Parkway. I've gained quite a bit of elevation above the level of the river now. There's a lookout here, which gives a really nice view of the city of Gatineau over on the Quebec side of the river. The tall white building is the St. Francis de Sales Church, and the bridges that are over to the left span the Gatineau River, which is one of the 3 rivers that converge here in Ottawa. Not far from there I joined Sussex Drive, and behind the fence on the right is the main official residence of the Prime Minister of Canada. I'm now crossing over the Rideau River, which is the 3rd of the 3 rivers that converge in Ottawa. Ottawa is Canada's capital city, and in the distance I can spot the Peace Tower and Library of Parliament. This here is the Macdonald Cartier Bridge, which is one of the main links between Ottawa and Gatineau. Further west I have a much better view of the buildings of Parliament Hill, sitting high above the Ottawa River. From where I was standing I followed a path which took me down a big hill to the edge of the river where the initial locks of the Rideau Canal are located. The Rideau Canal first opened in 1832, and it's the oldest continuously operating canal system in North America. To get across the canal I pushed my bike over the walkway for one of the lock gates. First opening in 1912, this big building at the top of the hill is the Chateau Laurier Hotel. This older building was built in 1827, and it's the home to the Bytown Museum. There are a total of 8 locks where the canal meets the Ottawa River, and they lift boats by a total height of 24 meters on this initial stretch of their 202 kilometer journey to Kingston. This boat that's in lock number 1 right now, however, is heading in the opposite direction, and the lock staff are opening the gate so it can reach the open water of the Ottawa River. If you recall back on day 1 of this trip, I camped next to lock 17 on this same canal in the community of Burritts Rapids. The bridge that you can see in the distance is the Alexandra Bridge, which was completed in the year 1900. The time is now 11:15, and I've ridden 40 kilometers so far today. Beyond the canal there's this nice paved path which follows right alongside the river. Up ahead there's a segment of the trail which is currently under construction, but it's really nice to see that they put in a temporary replacement path. Ottawa has the reputation of being very well funded when it comes to bike infrastructure compared to other cities in Ontario. As I continue to ride away from Ottawa's central downtown area, the path follows along beside the Sir John A. Macdonald Parkway. I'm now approaching Remic Rapids Park, and beside the water there's some interesting looking stacked rocks. These were set up by a local artist who's been stacking rocks in the same spot since 1986. There's always something special about riding along next to water, and I'm thoroughly enjoying my ride today. I have to say I'm quite envious of Ottawa's network of multi-use trails. Over on the right I'm riding past Britannia Beach. The current temperature is 21 degrees Celsius, and the weather forecast is estimating a 30% chance of showers for the remainder of the day. I'm now riding past Andrew Hayden Park, which I'm somewhat familiar with because I purchased my 1992 Iowa linear recumbent bike a few years back from a guy who lived near this part of Ottawa. I've now reached the point where the trail which follows the river peters out and becomes a paved shoulder next to a fairly busy road. This road led me into the suburb of Kanata, where I selected a restaurant called Sabai Thai for lunch. I decided to order their Panang Thai curry, which was sweet and very delicious. I have a tradition on my bike trips of always eating Thai food on at least one of the days, so it's nice to be able to keep this tradition alive. After I finished my meal I got back on my bike and began heading in the northwest direction. My route includes a few short segments of trail, but I soon reached the edge of Kanata and found my way onto some quiet country roads. The clouds overhead certainly make me feel like it might start raining at any moment, and the wind is still fighting me with every pedal stroke that I throw at it. Even though I'm now well beyond the area that most people would consider Ottawa, I'm technically still within the Ottawa city limits. Since it was amalgamated in 2001, the city of Ottawa spans a massive 6.7 thousand square kilometers, which is larger than the entire province of Prince Edward Island. Considering the provincial park I'm heading to is located in Ottawa, and so was my campground last night, I'll be spending my entire day in the same city despite riding a substantial distance. The roads I've been riding on through here have had some nice scenery, and the traffic has been really light for the most part. On my portable AM/FM radio, I've been hearing a lot of discussion today about the upcoming Canadian federal election, which seems like an appropriate soundtrack to a day spent in the nation's capital. I can't get over how many school buses there are parked outside of this elementary school. The time is now 3:30, and I've traveled a total of 86 kilometers so far today. After beginning my ride after lunch today, I've now passed the unofficial halfway point of my 9-day trip. Over on the right there's a sign for a ferry boat to Quebec. My destination today is on the Ontario side of the river, but I'm planning to begin my journey tomorrow morning with a ride on that ferry. Despite all the dark clouds overhead, I haven't let that distract me from enjoying the beautiful agricultural scenery. The time is now 4:15, and here I've arrived at the entrance to Fitzroy Provincial Park. Situated at the mouth of the Carp River, Fitzroy Provincial Park was first established in 1963. I arrived at the gatehouse to discover that it had already closed for the day, but thankfully they have a self-serve station which I can use to purchase my camping permit. So they provide a list of the available campsites, and all you need to do is deposit the cash inside of an envelope. I wish more provincial parks would offer this very basic service, which is much more economical than making a web or phone reservation. After crossing over the Carp River, I selected this campsite in the area of the park known as the Two Rivers Campground. My first order of business after arriving was to do a load of laundry at the nearby park comfort station. Finally, today's strong west wind can do something useful for me. My second priority was to set up my tent, which was still a bit wet from the rain that fell last night. At around 7 p.m. I decided to go and explore a bit more around the park. The main entrance where I came into the park is up at the top of a big hill, but based on the map it looks like there's a secondary entrance down near the river, which I can hopefully use as a shortcut to get to Fitzroy Harbour. The vehicle gate has a lock on it, but there's a narrow path which is wide enough for bikes and pedestrians to get through. So Fitzroy Harbour is a small community with just a few hundred people, which is located directly adjacent to the provincial park. While I was riding around exploring, I was excited to spot this animal standing by the side of the road. This is a North American porcupine, which is a large rodent with sharp quills that protect it against predators. A typical adult porcupine has around 30,000 quills, and each one has sharp barbs which can get lodged inside the flesh of its attackers. There's a common misconception that porcupines can throw their quills, but this is not the case. When a porcupine feels threatened by a predator, they'll make their quills stand up, which make them easier to detach from the body should the predator try to make contact with them. Another line of defense that these creatures have is that they can swing their tails at predators. Since the tail is also covered in quills, the predator will get quilled before even attacking. Since I'm maintaining a safe distance from this one, it doesn't seem to be threatened by me, and the quills are kept flattened against the body. This was my first time seeing a porcupine in quite a few years, and I enjoyed getting to watch it. It's now time for my dinner though, and the one restaurant in Fitzroy Harbour is called Harbour Pizza. Since I just had pizza 2 days ago, I was interested to see what other choices they had on their menu. I ended up ordering their Donaire Platter. Donaire is a style of rotisserie beef which originated from Halifax. I would have gotten a better picture of my Donaire if I didn't have a new friend sitting here next to me. After I finished eating, I did a minor repair on my bike, then headed back to the park to have a shower and climb inside my tent. So including my short trip to Fitzroy Harbour tonight, I rode my bike a total of 104 kilometers today. Stay tuned for the next episode in my Eastern Ontario bike tour series, where tomorrow on day 6 I'll be taking a ferry across the river to Quebec and riding northwest to the city of Pembroke. I hope you enjoyed joining me for day number 5 of my trip. If you watched all the way to the end of this video, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.